Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a topic that, frankly, sparks a ton of debate, but usually lacks, well, scientific clarity. We're going to strip away all the outside noise and just explore the hard biological facts of emergency contraception. Because it turns out, the cellular mechanics happening here are this fascinating, literal race against time. So let's look at the data together.
Okay, let's dive right into this by immediately addressing the absolute biggest misconception surrounding this topic. It's a question that pops up constantly, whether it's in public debates or private clinic rooms. Is taking an emergency contraceptive pill the exact same thing as having a medication abortion? Well, to really understand the science of reproductive care, we absolutely have to start with accurate medical definitions.
So looking at the clinical distinctions, the medical data lays this out super clearly. Medication abortion utilizes a specific regimen, typically mifepristone and misoprostol, to safely end a pregnancy that already exists, and this can be done up to 11 weeks into a pregnancy. Basically, mifepristone stops the hormones going to the pregnancy, and misoprostol causes cramping to pass it. Now, on the exact opposite side of the timeline, we have emergency contraception. This is an intervention used immediately following unprotected sex or maybe when a regular contraceptive method fails to prevent a pregnancy from ever happening in the first place. One ends a pregnancy, the other stops one from beginning. That is a massive biological difference, right?
And we can see this firmly established right here in the medical guidelines from Physicians for Reproductive Health. According to their data, emergency contraception actively prevents ovulation, fertilization, and implantation. The source material is unequivocal here. This is not an abortion. And you know, this is an absolutely crucial distinction. It means that from a purely clinical and mechanical standpoint, any restrictions placed on abortion procedures do not inherently apply to emergency contraception simply because they operate on completely different biological stages of reproduction.
All right, moving on to Section 1, how the pill works at the cellular level.
So, what exactly happens inside the body when someone actually takes the morning after pill? The biological sequence here is honestly brilliant in how targeted it is. Step 1. The emergency contraceptive pill introduces a synthetic progestin into the system, which very quickly binds to specific hormone receptors in the body. Step 2 is where the magic really happens. By binding to those receptors, the medication actively suppresses what is known as the luteinizing hormone surge, or the LH surge. Normally, a massive spike in LH is the chemical signal that tells the ovaries, hey, it's time to drop an egg. But because of Step 2, we get to Step 3. The release of the egg is entirely prevented, or at least significantly delayed. And without an egg present, any sperm waiting around in the reproductive tract have absolutely nothing to fertilize.
Which brings us to this highly clarifying quote from the clinical data. The morning after pill works by preventing ovulation through hormonal disruption, not by terminating an existing pregnancy. Meaning, if an egg has already been fertilized and has successfully implanted into the uterine wall, these hormonal disruptions will do absolutely nothing to reverse that process. It is strictly a preventative measure, period.
Now, what's really interesting about this next part, Section 2, the ovulation window, a race against time. Think of ovulation as the ultimate finish line in a biological race. Once that egg is released, the race is practically over. This makes time the single most critical factor in how well emergency contraceptives work. Let's break down this data from Doctronic, which compares the two primary types of pills, levonorgestrel, commonly known as Plan B, and ulipristal acetate, known as Ella. In the first 24 hours, both are incredibly effective, preventing about 95% of potential pregnancies. From 24 to 48 hours, they both hold strong at 85%. But look at what happens right at that 48 to 72-hour mark. Plan B's effectiveness suddenly plummets to 58%, while Ella maintains its 85% efficacy. And from 72 to 120 hours, taking Plan B is generally no longer recommended at all, whereas the prescription option, Ella, is still 85% effective. So the medications process through the body differently, basically buying the patient different amounts of time.
But here's the thing. 120 hours is the absolute hard stop. 120 hours, which is roughly 5 days, is the maximum biological window for any emergency contraceptive method to be effective. Why? Because sperm can survive in the reproductive tract for up to 5 days. If you can manage to delay the egg from releasing for those 120 hours, the sperm simply die off and fertilization becomes biologically impossible. And we actually have some fascinating systemic review data to back this up. This data tracks pregnancy rates based on precisely when the pill is taken relative to the body's natural ovulation cycle. Check this out. If a pill like levonorgestrel is taken more than 72 hours before expected ovulation, the pregnancy rate is stunningly low, just 0.6 to 1.8%.
But if it's taken in the periovulatory window, meaning right around the time ovulation is gearing up, the risk of pregnancy spikes significantly to between 18.5% and 35.2%. And if it's taken right during that luteinizing hormone surge we talked about earlier, the pregnancy rate skyrockets to nearly 60%. At that point, the body is already committed to releasing the egg, and the medication is essentially powerless to stop it.
So the crucial point we need to take away here is this. Once ovulation actually occurs, the clinical mechanisms prove that these oral medications have zero effect. They don't alter fertilization if the egg and sperm meet, they don't block implantation, and they definitely do not affect early embryo viability. The science shows they are purely anti-ovulatory.
Which leads us right into Section 3, choosing your method, practical variables.
With all this really intricate timing data in mind, how does a user's physical profile dictate their options? Well, body weight is actually a scientifically proven variable when it comes to how our bodies process these synthetic hormones. Over-the-counter options like Plan B are most effective for individuals weighing under 165 pounds. The prescription pill Ella extends that effectiveness for individuals up to 195 pounds. But for folks who weigh more than that, or for whom the exact timing of ovulation is unknown, clinical guidelines point to a completely different biological mechanism, the copper IUD, and that is effective for people of literally all sizes.
Let's look at why the copper IUD is such a powerful alternative here. If it's inserted within that exact same 120-hour window, it is up to 99% effective. But it doesn't work by delaying ovulation. Instead, it continuously releases copper ions into the reproductive tract, which are basically highly toxic to sperm, completely inhibiting their ability to swim and fertilize an egg. Because it doesn't rely on suppressing the LH surge at all, medical guidelines strongly recommend the copper IUD as the most effective emergency fallback if a patient suspects ovulation has already happened.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real landscape of choices available to patients today. On one hand, you have over-the-counter options like Plan B. It's incredibly accessible. I mean, you can walk into a pharmacy and buy it right off the shelf, but it is highly sensitive to your biological clock and your body weight. On the other hand, you have prescription pills like Ella or clinical procedures like the IUD. These require a healthcare provider, which might mean a slight delay in access, but they offer significantly extended windows of effectiveness and cater to higher weight thresholds. It's all about matching the patient's specific real-world variables to the right biological mechanism.
Which leaves us with this vital question. We've seen exactly how timing, body weight, and the unyielding biological ovulation window dictate the effectiveness of these treatments. This isn't guesswork, you guys. It's cellular biology. So how will fully understanding these hard scientific facts change the way we, as a society and as individuals, navigate emergency reproductive care? Because when we empower ourselves with clear, unbiased clinical data, we make faster, safer, and infinitely more effective health decisions. I hope this explainer has given you the foundational science to really understand this crucial topic. Keep learning, keep asking those big questions, and we'll see you in the next explainer.